Well, our Rise Director of News and Politics, Editor Sumner, Sambo, who joins us now. Sumner, good to see you, and thanks for your time. Quite an interesting moment it is, politically speaking, and in the political space. But again, let's first of all look at what is happening. For many Nigerians, this may seem like deja vu. After elections, why is it that when you thought that they were going to come together, every political party in this case, you see the bickering amongst them?
Well, it's normal. Let me start, first of all, with the critical roles of political parties in our democracy, which has to do with the candidate selection process. And so you have to hold political party primaries in the format that is supposed to align with what Nigerians actually expect from the Electoral Commission, INEC. So political parties, in a nutshell, are microcosms of, what we expect from INEC. So when you see political parties start saying that we don't have credible elections, the problem actually starts from the political parties themselves. Because whatever you're seeing right now after the elections are as a result of the lack of internal democracy in the political parties, right from the preparations for primaries to the candidate selection process, where the primaries come to an end, and then from there, the general elections, and then the aftermath. Now, apart from the candidate selection process, the second major issue is issues of finances. And then the third one is the issue of proxy wars among leaders of top political parties in the country, people who don't want to come out and fight. Now, let me go back to that second point, which has to do with the issues of finances. Now, a lot of Nigerians don't pay their party dues. So they leave the parties to the money bags and all of that. How do you expect internal democracy?
Good question.
Because a lot of people don't give accountability, because the governors contribute. If you have those who have been former national leaders, they contribute monies. And of course, the simple thinking here is that once you contribute monies, of course, you want to determine the flow and all of that. Now, the other problem comes with the national chairman and the national secretaries. Once they come into the National Working Committee, they see themselves as the alpha and omega. Now, if you look at the body of political parties in Nigeria, you discover that even the National Working Committee, which is like the management of the political parties that do the day-to-day runnings, majority of the positions there are often divided among the top party leaders before they go to a convention, and then the party leaders fill the slots. This happened last year at the APC, where you see the national chairman was given to a particular set of people. The national secretary was given to a particular set of people. Now, the Buhari group produced the national chairman.
Are you talking about zoning?
Yes. Apart from zoning to the geopolitical zones, there's also zoning to the big men. The national chairmanship position, for example, the Buhari group produced that one. While the national secretary, the second most powerful position, was produced by the Tinubu group. Then you go on to other positions like the national organizing secretary, you go on to the national publicity secretary, the legal advisor, and all of that. Now, what Nigerians don't know is that most of these positions are already shared by some of these big men, who then decide to put in particular people from the geopolitical zones that were decided. So when you have this big manism determining the people that will go there rather than vote at conventions, then we'll have a problem. So the major challenge is that the lack of internal party democracy will continue to affect. Now, the outcome of the elections that we're seeing now is because some of those people, some of those party leaders don't see the need to give account to the parties. And so you see a party not following its own constitution. The national chairman is disbursing monies without the National Working Committee's approval. You see meetings being held without the National Executive Committee of the political parties or the National Caucus, giving approval. So these are the issues.
Well, based on what Salihu Lukman of the APC has said, that look, democracy without accountability is dictatorship.
And it was very clear there.
As far as based on what you've said, fundamentally, the practice of democracy is lacking within the political parties themselves. So how much really can you expect from non-democratic parties to actually deliver on democracy, the culture of democracy, and of course the outcome, the dividends of democracy itself. But
and that's why I was saying that I laugh when I see them saying that INEC is not credible, they haven't held credible elections. When you yourself didn't hold credible party primaries, you could hear where there are allegations in the Labour Party, for example, that the candidate selection process was, faulted because there are allegations that the party executive sold certain tickets to certain people. It happened even in the PDP. Don't forget where Nyesom Wike was accusing Yocha Ayu that he collected money from this governor, 1 billion, 100 million, and all of that. And then you go to ABGA, the same issues are here and there. So it has to do with the DNA of the sort of political structures that we have and we're practicing. There's no internal democracy, and yet these same political parties expect us to practice democracy very well.
It's safe to say that these political parties really are just special purpose vehicles.
Yes, that's what many of them are. And that's what we say, that there's a threat to our democracy, not from the military, but from the abuse of the political process by the politicians and the institutions. Because if we are not careful, these are the things that have led, if we don't learn, look, Sulaiman, if we don't learn from what's happening, it is not what people are saying that will destroy this democracy. It is the attitude of politicians themselves when they refuse to give those who have won party primaries the ticket, or they go to forge documents to bring people who are not popular in the party and present them before the general elections. These are some of the things that
NWC.
I mean, look, that's the allegation, including forging of receipts and all of that, allegedly. Now, these are some of the things that the military used to give in those days. Look at why Shehu Shagari's government was kicked out on December 31st, 1983. Why? Because the party had become so arrogant. The government that the party had put in place alongside Nigerians became so arrogant and powerful. Don't forget, I mean, these were people who were drinking champagnes, importing all sorts of things, and all of that. Yes, so the reality is that if we are not careful, these are some of the things that make people to see that the political process is not working, and they would want to resort to self-help, as we would have heard through the course of an ING, interim national government, and all of that.
Sumner, you started off well, and you spoke about it being a macrocosm of the larger society, and it comes back to the people, because clearly if you have people who are not partakers, who are not players of the political process, knowing full well that politics is local, and you're not also playing your local part, then you also will bound to have these problems. So now let's take it back to the people a little bit, if you can backtrack. Is there, or was there ever a time, politically speaking, in Nigeria, even from the parliamentary, talking about the First Republic, that the locals actually were paying members of such political parties to the extent that they owned and they can actually dictate
the people owned
how the parties can go?
Yes, I mean, we had a lot of them there. If you look at the Action Group, for example, they made a very good political capital of that. Obafemi Awolowo tried to actually see how he could, bring some powers to himself. But the members of the Action Group were a very enlightened set of voters, party members, party leaders, and all of that. So despite his efforts to want to center powers around himself, it was difficult. And that's why you could see people like Akintola having their own decisions. And they decided, when Akintola decided through the NNDP to go into an alliance with the NPC, the Northern People's Congress, he had a mind of his own, because he felt that the political atmosphere within the Action Group then was not, so democratic enough. And it looks like the influence of the party leader was becoming more than, those who are the party members. And as a result of that, he decided to break away with the help of some other people. If you come to the Northern People's Congress, it is the same thing that happened. That's why you have the Aminu Kanos of this world, saying that the politics of the Northern People's Congress then was not in such that, the party members could have enough influence to be able to take certain decisions. When it started, some of the NPC members had a lot of influence. But after elections, for example, the 1963-64 scenario that we had, a lot of people started saying that, look, we were being taken advantage of by political leaders. After winning elections, they will use their government power to muzzle the political power. Now, political institution or the political party is supposed to be stronger than the government that it puts in place.
Unfortunately,
and that's why you see Abdisakin Loye in the Second Republic tried to exercise their powers, where himself would always summon the president, Shehu Shagari, and tell him that, look, the party is greater than the president, because the president is a product of the party. But when we got to 1999, we started this Fourth Republic, you see that the president, especially Olusegun Obasanjo, he brought in a system that bastardized the political process by making himself, the leader of the party. And it's an aberration. The fact that you're in government does not make you the leader of the party. You're supposed to be controlled by the political party in such a way that if you don't perform very well to bring the party back into power, the party can change you, even though you are entitled to a second term.
And in all of this, accountability, sorry, a moment. And in all of this, accountability is the crux of the matter. You take money, and at the end of the day, you're not accountable to the party.
Look at APC, for example. The funds that were sold, all the funds, the monies generated, nobody has told any party leader or party member what those monies were used for. This is a governing party. Now, when the Oyegun led National Working Committee was there, the allegations was that he was too open, he was allowing some of the organs to work. And then we brought in, you had what's called Shomole and then Buni, and then the allegations were that they were not too open. But at least they tried to bring some accountability. But now you have Abdullah Adamo, nobody knows how much he inherited from the Mamala Buni committee that was in place. And now they are here. We don't know how much was collected. Now, this is the same allegation that we have against Yocha Ayu. When they said the monies that were collected, they did not give state chapters money to be able to use to sponsor candidates. In other words, because the monies generated are supposed to be used to sponsor candidates. When people pay 100 million naira for funds, the funds are not supposed to go to the national chairman or secretary alone. It's supposed to be used to support candidates. There are some lower candidates, House of Rep members, State Assembly members that don't have enough money.
Across the country.
Yeah, so what the national chairman and the National Working Committee can do is to say, look, let's look at areas or candidates that don't have enough capacity to be able to sponsor themselves. Right. But they are popular. Absolutely. So if they are popular, the National Working Committee will send some monies to them and ensure that they win, so that their popularity is not taken advantage of by those who have money in those constituencies. But that has not been happening.
Benga raised a point there. Let's talk about that very quickly before we go. The third force that was expected in this dispensation, did it happen at all? And are we moving more towards a two-party state, or?
That's the fear, actually. Right. And when some of these fringe political parties that came together were thought that they will help to build the democratic process, including the same APC that is giving challenges, some of the accusations that they were having against the PDP then was that the PDP was too big, it had become too arrogant with power and all of that, and that some of the structures, the organs were not working. But it's the same APC now that we have seen that they boycotted their board of trustees and renamed the National Advisory Council. We are not seeing the National Advisory Council meeting. If I ask you who's the BOT chairman of the APC, nobody knows. They said National Advisory Council is the new committee name, and they haven't been meeting. The National Caucus, the National Executive Committee, they haven't been meeting for a long period of time. These are critical decisions. Now, for the other parties that you talked about, we have thought that with the emergence of the Labour Party, we wouldn't hear some of the things that we're hearing. But you know that there was quite a short time when the Obedient Movement moved into the Labour Party. So what we are seeing now is a fight about those people who want to take over the structure of the party and reform it, and those who came from outside. Some of the party leaders you are seeing, the Labour Party, are those who have been there for some time and they felt that they were pushed away. But the reality is that as it stands now, some of these other political parties are not democratic enough. Many of them don't hold conventions. They have party leaders that stay there for long. Some of them, one among was even accused of staying for over 15, 16 years. Now, so in a nutshell, the reality is that the bigger challenge here is that if we do not have these political parties coalescing to work based on their guidelines, the main challenge here is that INEC too needs to be questioned. INEC is supposed to be the regulator of the political parties. How come INEC is not playing its full role? You have ABGA, for example, going up to the Supreme Court, having several orders, and how INEC would just be quiet. Because shouldn't we remove those powers from INEC? If INEC think it doesn't have the power to regulate them, or the Inter-Party Advisory Council, you see this body that's supposed to be made up of all political parties regulating themselves, but it's just the smaller parties that come to attend meetings. The APC and PDP think that they are too big enough. Let's not give the military any excuse to want to come back to power, because the military has no role to play. But the politicians are corrupting the process, and I must tell you that it is not those who are in government alone. Those people who are running political parties, some of them seem to be running cabals and non-political parties.
We'll have to leave it
and
there,
we
Sumner.
have to regulate them. INEC must be called to order to regulate these political
Question
parties.
is INEC independent enough to stand its ground?
That's another
Sumner,
question.
we'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much for joining us.